and that delays that doesn't help us immediately, but it builds up capacity for a little bit later. Okay.
Michael, I'm sorry to interrupt. Folks, is it okay? I've just started the recording there now. Apologies, I didn't get to ask permission at the start. Is everybody okay with this session being recorded for those who can't make it? Great, thanks. Sorry, Michael.
That's fine. So that's just an overview. We don't want to spend a lot of time on those issues because they're more trial management issues. And the purpose of today is really to focus in on questions that more relate to yourselves as therapists. Now, we've sent out a document, an updated version of the commonly asked questions document. I think you've all received those. Yes, yeah. Just nods will suffice. Is that fine? Good. Hopefully there has been a lot of explanation in relation to questions that have made their way to us, but can we, are there any, I mean, we will take the last item today is really to go into questions, specifically questions from therapists. So shall we just hold that for now? Because maybe some of those questions relate to the final item in the agenda, and just look at the other two documents first. Is that okay? Does that make sense? Okay. So you also got the treatment record sheet, and again, that's just been augmented a little bit to make sure everyone's recording additional information that's required in relation to homework, experiments, and so on. Let me just bring it up. Any questions about that, about the treatment record?
Well, maybe I should explain why it was changed, because we have to fill in reports about the study that NIHR then has to sign off, and the trial steering committee and also the data management committee sign off. And there is one criterion about patients doing homework in the criteria that we have to report. So we have asked you to specify of the homework that they're given, how many percent they actually did, just as a rough estimate. And I think one to emphasize about this form in general, there are like questions about how much time did you spend on various procedures, and don't think you have. So this is your rough guess is what we need. There is not like we're expecting you to have a stopwatch in a session and take like measure the time. It's just like to get a feeling for how much time was spent on the respective components. So fill it in quickly. It shouldn't take too much time. And the other thing is that it's now available in the online data collection system, so that it would be preferable if you could fill it in online after each session. And Poppy will record a little video about how to do that. It should be very straightforward. You will get a login to log into the database, and then instead of filling it in on paper every week and we type in the data later, it would be great if those of you who can do it online. Poppy, do you want to do a bit of a little demonstration now of what it would look like?
Yeah, can do. Okay, let me share my screen. Can you see this? Sort of big table? Yeah. So this is what it looks like for myself and Nina and Anka and Michael. So we've got the patients here on the left-hand side, and then you can see what questionnaires they filled in. So for each therapist, you will have a specific one that you can look at. So we can look at this one. So you'll have your specific patients in there. And then you will be able to release a weekly pack if you wish. You'll also be able to see the patients' scores on the baseline pack and the enrollment pack, and also the ITI that we do. And then you also have the treatment record sheet over here. I'm not going to click it just because this is for an actual patient. We don't want to fill in anything incorrectly. But you'd have that option to fill in that weekly record sheet every week on the system.
Thank you, Poppy.
Yeah, and Poppy and Nina will be very happy to help you when you first start with it. It should not take a lot of time. No, not longer than filling it on paper and pencil, hopefully. Thanks.
Thank you, Poppy. Nina, are you letting people in as they click? Because they're going off my screen very quickly here. Okay, good. Right, so thanks for helping us collect the information in this way, and it is really helpful if you're able to upload it directly. There's quite a lot of data that has to be inputted by the RAs in this trial, and as the numbers increase over the next months, there will be a lot of work on Nina and Poppy's shoulders. So the more we can do, that's really, really helpful. Are there any questions about the weekly record sheet? Is that pretty clear what we've done? Why we've just added a little bit more focus on the homework issue? Yeah. Okay, Joseph.
Joseph had a question.
Just a quick question around the weekly pack. Would that be the same battery of questionnaires that would be sent on a weekly basis, or can you select maybe a reduced amount just to kind of reduce some of the burden on the patient?
Yeah, so we are only sending out monthly questionnaires automatically via the database. You as a therapist have the option of doing extra packs. I know it's an issue with IAPT that you need the weekly data. So far the pack, because to be honest, the work with the setting up the database has been really tricky. So we still haven't got all the packs online that that we need. If for the moment you could just tell your patient only fill in the first 5 pages, or I don't know exactly how many that are the IAPT pack, and don't worry about the others. So it's not forced entry. So bear with us, but we will liaise with you as therapists and say, well, what should be in the shorter packs? There may be one other questionnaire you would like, and then we can get the CTU to set up one more. But every single one of them is a lot of backwards and forwards. So if could that be an interim solution?
Thank you. That's fine. Thank you, Anka.
I know when Poppy and I have been sending them out just prior to the development of the database, we've been sending the PCL5 and the ITQ in one pack together as the mandatory weekly measures, and then as well as that, the optional measures that contains those 2 mandatory measures as well as other ones that you may want to release.
Okay, Joseph. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, shall we move on then to the next document that we sent out this morning? Really, we're trying to produce a little bit more information, looking at the 2 elements of the trial, so a little bit more detail in relation to the therapist guide. So it's again an update based on the questions that have come through and some of the issues that have arisen as the trial has commenced, just producing a little bit more clarity and a little bit more detail in relation to what we do in both arms of the trial and how we integrate the CR techniques when the patients move from the CR element into the cognitive therapy element of the phased arm, as and if required within sessions. So it's just getting a little bit more detail around that. I appreciate you've only got that this morning and may not have had time to go through it in detail. But for those of you who have, are there any questions or queries? I know we have spent a session looking at this in detail before, so hopefully what we've added to the document really just is an update based on that previous session we had. So it's hopefully it's pretty clear. But if you've had a chance to look at it, anything else, now's the time we can discuss it.
Yeah, I think it goes a bit beyond just a summary of how the CR techniques can be helpful also in the second phase of the treatment and can be used, but the focus should be, as we discussed before, on the individual case formulation. So as needed, basically, if they are useful, then they can still be used, but shouldn't take up all of the session. But then in the CT, on the CT side, you will see some highlighted, some things highlighted in red, so that they stand out a bit. It is some reminders that of sometimes that we see in supervision that would be useful to remember. For instance, using trigger discrimination during behavioral experiments, to remember that, or to remember that to ask about the content of re-experiencing symptoms, because they are a good guide to the hotspots and so on. So it's just everything comes directly from the training videos that we have provided, but may still be a reminder of what should happen in the different parts of the treatment. It's not quite complete, so we will add to that as we go along. But any feedback you have, anything that doesn't make sense, it's a draft form still, so we can add to it and clarify things.
Thanks, Annika. Yeah, so I know that you just received it this morning, so please do feed back to us when you have the chance to look at this. The highlights, as Annika pointed out, they've emerged from supervision thus far in the trial, just some issues that have emerged. So we've highlighted those important points. One being, as Annika said, the importance of really zoning in on the re-experiencing symptoms, make sure we can relate them to the traumas, and that we can get access to the hotspots in order to try and update them. So, that was an important point that came through in a number of cases. Another important point was to remember the importance of behavior experiments, the importance of engaging the patient experientially in terms of learning, so that we augment the work in the session with really good behavior experiments, and that has come through in a couple of cases. And sometimes that involves therapists engaging with the patient in the behavior experiments, accompanying them to a site visit, for example. So, we really need to make sure that all of those elements are there within the trial, and they've come through thus far in cases that we've seen. So, but you will have other cases and other learning points, I'm sure. So, please feedback, and we will continue to develop this document throughout the trial. Are there any questions or comments on what you've seen so far? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so then shall we move on? Excuse me. So we've talked about the re-experiencing symptoms. So we put that on as a specific item because it did come up with some cases. Anything else, Annika, you wanted to add to that item?
Yeah, I think it relates to which patients do you choose to refer to the trial? I guess that a lot of it's organized differently in the English sites, I think, to the Northern Ireland sites, but it has become in of the people who were referred there were a few cases that didn't really have very clear re-experiencing symptoms in terms of intrusive memories that have this kind of flashback quality, or nightmares, which is one of the criteria for complex PTSD in the ICD-11. So that may be something that could be spotted already when in the initial assessments, when people have a lot of the symptoms of complex PTSD but don't really have any clear experiencing symptoms. That's then they are less likely to be suitable for the trial, because they would at the diagnostic interview then not meet full criteria for complex PTSD. So that sometimes can be picked up maybe already earlier when they get the first assessments. They have a lot of traumas maybe, and they say they may have a lot of hyperarousal symptoms, but no clear re-experiencing.
Thanks, Monica. I know that some of the therapists in the trial are not directly involved in the assessment, but some of you are. And so it is important that we learn from those cases where it was a bit unclear whether they were suitable, but it became clear as we looked into a bit more detail that there was they weren't able to relate their symptoms to the trauma, and it was a bit vague, so we've had a session with independent assessors to really tighten up on the assessments and link in with the first line assessor here in the trust to make sure the cases are appropriate for the trial, and that's been very helpful. Just to say thanks to Hannah, who's just sent through a link in the chat in relation to a paper on behavioral experiments. Anke, is that the article or the chapter, Hannah?
It's a chapter that Sharif and I wrote a few years ago that just sort of, I guess for therapists who are a bit less confident in behavioural experiments, just talks you through the steps and kind of gives ideas for what situations you might use experiments in and ideas for different types of experiments. So it's worth a look if you're a bit less certain about what to do, because I know they can be kind of slightly scary things, behavioural experiments, especially if you're out and about.
That's lovely, Hannah. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, in general, we had the idea that it's now quite a while since we did the workshops and put materials together, and actually in the meantime a few new papers have been published that give like more practical advice on how to do things, and we have put them on the OxCADAT resources website, but we also thought it might be just a good idea to just circulate them by email as well, then you don't have to look for them. So we're going to do that. So ignore them if you're already aware of them, but there may be the odd one of the recent ones, like we have a recent one on surveys, which is not only focused on PTSD, but has PTSD examples in. And then there's Michael and Jen Wild's paper on traumatic bereavement, which may be of interest for some cases. So we thought we'll just send them all in one email, then they are easier for you to find.
Thank you, Anke. Okay. Okay, so shall we move on then to the next item, which is really the opportunity for you to ask any questions in relation to the trial. The document, once again, was only sent out this morning, so you probably not have a chance to read it in great detail. See if I can pick it up. Should we put it on screen and go through it quickly?
Which document? Do you mean the
Q&A?
Unfaced or the question and answer one?
The question and answer, yeah. There's a lot in it.
Yeah, so while Michael is putting on screen, just wanted to say one more thing about the recruitment. For the initial patients, the recruitment process was quite protracted for the reasons I mentioned, for the questionnaire not being available on the CTU database, and also the therapist pairs not being available. But most recently, the throughput has been faster. But I would still encourage you, if you have a patient, to not hold back on referring them, because it's all a bit unpredictable, and we can have built in a little wait before we randomly allocate if they are suitable.
Thanks, Anka. Can you see the document?
Yeah.
Okay. So no, I don't intend to go through this line by line. We don't have enough time. But just to flag up what the content is, and if there are any issues that you have in relation to any of the items, if you just I can't see you now on screen, so just speak out and we'll deal with them. So the first item is really talks about the patient questionnaires and the forms. That we've dealt with this a little bit already on the basis of a question about when the pack should be completed and so on. So you'll have information about when the CTU questionnaires go out, and then the questionnaires that you may wish to add as a therapist to help with your therapy. We also have to link in what we're doing with the current systems that do exist, for example, with an IAPT, to try and reduce the duplication as much as we can. A little bit of advice about what to do if a patient is reluctant to complete the questionnaires, and what the minimum database is that we would require. And then there's just a helpful flow chart just about the patient journey through the trial. You've seen this before, but just to point out where you can release additional packs if you wish to do so. More about the forms that need to be completed during the treatment, and the key questionnaires that the therapist has to address, including the questionnaires that will go specifically to you. For example, the Working Alliance questionnaire to measure therapeutic alliance, and we really support me get those completed. A little bit then we've got about the duration and the timing of the sessions, when the amount of sessions, and how to deal with absences which may arise. So we've covered that before, I know, in previous sessions. It's important to try to get sessions completed within the time frame, and dealing with absences by supplementing with additional sessions if we can. How to manage that. Question of the length of the sessions was raised.
Sorry, as you're scrolling over, the adverse events is maybe something we should bring up. But we obviously hope not to have many adverse events.
Yeah, did I miss that?
Negative life events, it was in...
Sorry, Anka. Oh yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so so in the therapy record form, there is like a box where we can record any good events or any negative events that happen to the patient. And we are really interested in both, because often we see treatment bringing on really positive effects in their lives, or they could be independent from treatment. So we want to capture both. But and this will be hopefully all we can see in the trial. But as we're dealing with complex PTSD, there is obviously the possibility that adverse events in symptom worsening, or increase in suicidal ideation and so on happen. So all of those we would need to record, and especially if it's a serious adverse event, let's say a patient actually makes a suicide attempt, then you would need to inform the study team very promptly if that happens, because we need to then report that and see and assess whether it's treatment related and report that to the overview committees that supervise the trial as a trial leads to whether we're doing everything correctly. You would obviously also liaise with your managers in your services, but the research team also needs to know about these serious adverse events beyond what you fill in the form. So if it's something serious like that, or a patient is hospitalized, or let's say sections or something like that, then we would need to report that right away.
Okay.
Let's hope it doesn't happen, but we just need to be prepared for this.
Yes. Yes. Okay. We've clarified the issue about the length of the sessions, and the the fact that the first session can be extended if because this came up also about when we talked about the compassionate resilience session, and how we add that at the beginning of the cognitive therapy sessions for 10 minutes. Okay. Yeah, this came up also in the question, what, about the numbers of sessions and what happens if someone's doing really well. Well, clearly if someone has moved into the subclinical zone for complex PTSD and we regard them as recovered, we don't keep them in the trial for the full extent of the sessions. And, with supervisor, it can be agreed when the patient is discharged. So it's a case-by-case basis, but the trial guide outlines what's the maximum number of sessions available. And so we've put a little bit more detail around that. As I say, just call out if you want to ask any questions, because I can't see you on screen at the moment. The next issue is about we've had some questions about the recording of sessions, and hopefully now we've dealt with that in quite a bit of detail here. How we record. And one issue has come up about the number of times we record. This is a bit of it's an important issue, because we are required as part of the study protocol to conduct fidelity checks. So we have to sort of randomly select cases throughout the trial, across and across the different therapists. And so we're sort of recommending that we record at least half of the sessions, and that we do that either using Microsoft Teams or video recording equipment that we can provide. And we've explained how this can be stored safely. So we hope that will work. In the main, we really want to see video recordings. It enables us to do the most thorough fidelity checks. If there's the odd case where a patient is uncomfortable but with video recording and wishes to audio record, that will be acceptable. But we really, want to make clear that should be, hopefully very few of the cases. In the main, video recording is the preferred option. But we appreciate there might be a patient who maybe works in the security services in Northern Ireland, for example, where that will be an issue, and in that case, we will accept audio recordings. So we've outlined the minimum supervision requirements. That's a minimum, and we've talked to supervisors about how to manage that as the trial unfolds, and across both arms. But it is an issue, so we have to be clear that with some of the service leads, we've been getting questions about the amount of time the trial's consuming. So we have to, we have to provide supervision within the confines of the service provision that currently exists, and therefore we've explained that, for example, that after the 8 weeks, the CR supervision would not be required, but Deborah and Martha will provide a drop-in clinic for therapists thereafter if they wish to sort of avail of it whilst they're getting the structured supervision for the cognitive therapy provision during that element of the trial. And so we have to keep this in order to ensure that the service managers and so on aren't giving us more negative feedback about the amount of time the trial is consuming. So we're trying to work within all these different restraints, and we've updated the Q&A form for you accordingly. A little bit of clarification about the role of cognitive, and we talked a wee bit about when we move into the phased arm, the role of compassionate resilience in that element of the trial. And of course, the key thing is to remember that the trial is to really try to check whether, cognitive therapy that we know works for PTSD, is it effective for complex PTSD? So we, and then the second part of that is, does it work more effectively if there is a phased element or not? And so we need to ensure that when the patients move from the 8 weeks in the phase wing, that the same targets and the same goals are prevalent as are prevalent in the non-phased arm. So we target the same key elements that are explained within the model. And this is just a summary of this in this section, that we work in the memory, on the negative appraisals, and the unhelpful strategies that are maintaining the complex PTSD. And a little bit of detail then about, and that's augmented by the other document you've received, about what we do is contained in this next session. Any comments or queries about this? Okay, I appreciate I'm moving through this very quickly, but as I said earlier, you can come back to us once you've had a chance to study this in a bit more detail. There's the model, which should be ingrained in your memory now. This should be part of your implicit memory. Here.
Yeah, it's also meant to illustrate how the phase 1 and phase 2 kind of work together. So what we address in the phase 1 is the orange part, like focusing on training compassion to address what people have taken away from prior experiences and previous traumas, and then the main focus on the second phase of the treatment is what's at the core of CT, is focusing on this maintenance, the maintenance cycles between trauma memory, appraisals, and unhelpful behaviors. In complex PTSD, we also have a lot of problems in relationships, and you may have wondered where it fits in the kind of central box here, maintenance box. We see it as these problems in relationship as a function of the unhelpful behavior, such as social withdrawal, and also of the appraisals, like you can't trust anybody. And so it is part of the model, but it was is not highlighted as a separate point in the central box. So that's why the attention is drawn to it. It's actually there because these things follow from the appraisals and the unhelpful behaviors people are using.
Thank you, Anka. And so we can conceptualize all these aspects of complex PTSD using the model. And they're also treatment targets. In a sense, it reinforces the points we made earlier about useful behavior experiments. So in one case that came up in our supervision groups where we flushed out the negative appraisals around trust and so on. And as the therapist worked in modifying those, then we were able to test out the new beliefs in the forms of changed behaviors outside the clinic and how they approach relationships and so on. So the behavior experiments became really important in updating memory and challenging those appraisals. So we're trying to add to and elaborate the Q&A document as information comes back to us from the supervisors and the sites. And we will continue to do this as we go through the trial. And so this document is, if you like, the current version. But please, feed back to us, continue to feed back to us, and we will continue to do this. So, but if there's any specific questions that you want to raise today, and for us to consider, we have got 15 minutes or so left. Joseph, I think, had you your hand up? Yeah.
That was an old hand, but yeah.
Oh, an old hand.
Yeah. I've got another question, which I think is probably contained somewhere within the documents. And apologies, we've not really started in Box yet, so this might be old news. And just refer me to the document if you can. But I'm just the question I just had is about eligibility for the trial for somebody who's received treatment in the past, and specifically for PTSD, I suppose. And the reason I'm asking is that some of our patients potentially that has got this problem may have had a history of different treatments, but yeah, just checking again what the thinking is around that, and when people aren't going to be eligible for the trial.
Yeah, it's not an exclusion criterion because we expect that people will have had various treatments, but any other psychological therapy that they are receiving when they are assessed would need to end before they come into the trial. So let's say they are already doing some EMDR treatment, then we wouldn't want that to run in parallel to the trial, and we would probably want a few months in between to see whether how they are doing after they had the course of treatment. So we wouldn't really like people going straight from one treatment to the other. But if they had a course of treatment 5 years ago or 3 years ago, and they saw some benefit, but then it wasn't stable, those people and often, I guess, what we have seen in the past is often the treatment was called CBT, but it wasn't as trauma focused as we would do it, or it was another approach. So we don't exclude those people.
I think what Joseph we would need to do is obviously if there are cases that you're not sure about, link in with the research ANCA or your supervisors locally, because we've had a couple of cases like that were unclear, and we've had to, when we got a bit more detail to make the decision that they were suitable or weren't. So yeah.
Thank you. I'll do that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I think that was Mark had a hand up.
Okay.
Yep. Afternoon, guys. Hi, Michael. Just a practical question in regards to the storage of the sessions, the recordings. Where do we keep those? Because the memory stick won't keep them all. So.
Yeah. We have we've discussed this in the sort of trust by trust basis, Mark. No, it's okay. No, it's a good question. We're working to a system that allows us to retain the cases for fidelity checks centrally, because obviously we don't know when we're going to be able to sort of look at them. So we have protected database Oxford and Queen's. And we have secure methods for uploading material now. Those who are recording onto Teams, we can do that directly. If you're recording onto the encrypted memory sticks that we provided, then we'll work out an arrangement with Nina and Victoria how those will be uploaded, and then you can clear the stick and use it for your next patient, Mark. Is that okay?
Yeah, I link in with you, Nina, then to get them off. Brilliant. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just following on from that one, do therapists know how to upload directly to that system from Teams, or do we need to send some instructions about how that exactly works? Because I wouldn't know personally exactly how to do that.
Okay. Yeah, Poppy, you're the expert.
There's a function on Teams called Secure Send, which you can use to send it to me, and then I can get it onto the secure system that we have.
Yeah, and the same will be, yeah, it will be something similar our side, and we can send some instruction on how that's done.
So we can do that now after the meeting today, if obviously, so everyone knows how to do this, and we will retain the case, these two several databases that are secure to the trial only. We've explained this to the R&D offices locally, and so that, you know, when the sites are approved, this has been okayed by them, Mark, as well. So your trust has approved this mechanism. Okay. Any other questions? Any comments? I appreciate we're probably eating into your lunch breaks. But anything else to add, Anke, from your point of view?
Well, I just wanted to express my gratitude to you all for sticking so long with us. I appreciate that this has been dragging on forever, really, from the initial workshops that we did to now finally getting the okay from most trusts to start recruiting. And you've attended supervision in that time and come to lots of meetings with us. So we are excited that we're now more or less on full capacity for recruitment, and hope that we'll be able to report to you better numbers of numbers recruited next time. But a big thank you from me and the whole team and Michael. It has been a long process, but we're glad that we got to this where we are now.
Indeed. Okay, so if there's nothing else, then we'll let you all go and maybe have time to grab a sandwich before your next session starts. And just to amplify the points Anke made, really appreciate all the efforts you've made thus far, and look forward to working more closely with you over the next time period. Have a nice lunch break. See you all again soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.